Asia-Pacific is the most disaster-prone region of the world, suffering on average 40% of global disasters each year. In 2011, there were 136 reported disaster events. 73% of these were weather-related, the most common being floods and storm damage caused by monsoon rains, cyclones and typhoons. Not only do natural disasters claim thousands of lives each year, they result in massive economic losses. Disaster damages in Asia totaled $276 billion in 2011, the highest ever recorded. While single high-impact events such as the earthquake and tsunami in Japan occur every few years, it is the many smaller disasters and the impacts of climate change that cause the greatest disruption, affecting people's lives on an almost daily basis.
The patterns are not necessarily changing when you're looking over a long-term projection. However, when you look at short-term periods, we see that there's an intensification of the monsoonal rainfall. This is caused by our changing weather patterns, but also caused by the impact of where people are living. So the rainy seasons are not necessarily the only impact in the people's vulnerability. It's where the people are located and where they're being forced to reside today due to economic and social pressures within their environment.
When disasters strike, the main focus for Red Cross and Red Crescent national societies is on saving lives. This means carrying out search and rescue, providing emergency relief, shelter, clean water, and medical care. But prevention efforts are just as important.
Respond and spend a lot of time and energy. We only deal with the impact of disaster. The disaster preparedness and disaster response should be balanced. But the capacity building is very important for us. So PMI in chapter and branches not only strong in disaster response, but at least they have to initiate the community-based program, disaster risk reduction program.
3 points from each group. But
the job begins with developing the skills of National Society staff. Here, a disaster risk reduction field training session in Sri Lanka brings together teams from across Asia-Pacific. They learn to carry out vulnerability and capacity assessments and then apply their knowledge amongst hazard-prone communities.
The purpose of the map is to understand the community. So in a map you'll see two things, that's the vulnerabilities in the community as well as the capacities or the resources in the community.
Such communities are best placed to find local solutions to their own problems. Since 1994, the Red Cross has been instrumental in changing the lives of people living in coastal Vietnam by restoring mangrove forests. The mangroves provide a vital function, protecting coastal villages from storm surges from the sea during the typhoon season and contributing to local biodiversity. But since the 1960s, 2/3 of the country's mangrove forests were cut down to make way for commercial activities such as shrimp farms. 17 years on, local communities have transformed deserted mudflats by planting 9,000 hectares of mangrove, bamboo and casuarina trees spanning 8 provinces. The project is part of a wider disaster preparedness program that actively involves local school children. They help with planting of seedlings. And in the schoolroom, they also learn about the importance of mangroves to their community and get to test their knowledge in competitions. Comprised of over 7,000 islands, the Philippines ranks as one of the most hazard-prone countries in the world. Here, the impacts of climate change are clearly apparent. 2011 saw the highest number of disasters recorded in the country's history, with 18 floods and landslides, 12 storms and 2 volcanic eruptions. For decades, the Red Cross has invested in local-level disaster mitigation projects. To measure their effectiveness, a cost-benefit analysis was carried out, which has proved that preparedness really pays. In Ambique province, help was given to construct a footbridge that now connects 2 communities in the same village who were previously separated during the rainy season. Now, children are no longer cut off from the school. People can access local markets, and everyone is able to reach the village health centre. For every Philippine peso invested, the bridge has provided 24 times that amount through its wider benefits for the community. In Surigao del Norte, local residents have been involved in the maintenance of a 300-metre seawall. The wall will protect the community from storm surges for 20 years, yielding a cost-benefit ratio of 5 pesos for every 1 peso spent on its construction and maintenance. For disaster risk reduction projects to be successful, they have to be sustained over time. This requires the active participation of the local community. Providing timely early warning information in advance of a disaster requires collaboration between national or local authorities, civil society and, most importantly, disaster-prone communities. In Indonesia, important lessons were learned after the 2004 tsunami. Now, simulation exercises are staged on a regular basis to allow for speedy evacuations in the face of danger. Similar exercises take place in Sri-Lanka, where every year during the monsoon season, communities living amidst the steep hills of Nur Elia district fall victim to landslides. Once a siren has been activated, villagers follow predetermined routes to reach the safety of evacuation centres. Search and rescue teams look for the missing, and first aiders care for any injuries. After the drill, the village gathers together with officials from the local disaster management authority and the police to review the exercise and discuss where improvements could be made to their plans. Building community resilience requires interventions across different sectors, including public health. About 1.8 billion people in Asia Pacific lack access to basic sanitation, and thousands die each year from preventable waterborne diseases. In Pakistan, Red Crescent volunteers are mobilizing communities in rural areas to achieve sustainable sanitation on a large scale. By changing habits through education and awareness, building toilets and providing access to safe water, the incidence of disease can be reduced, particularly in times of disasters. Children have proved to be highly effective agents of behavioural change, influencing adults in good hygiene practices, such as hand washing. Disasters hit the poorest hardest, destroying property and livelihoods in seconds. Recovery can take years. After the devastating 2008 earthquake that struck China's Sichuan province, helping families to get their lives back on track and earn an income meant providing training in new skills, together with startup capital in the form of microcredit. Tang Thu Siu took part in training on ways to improve her poultry business.
我们就学这个生态节、这个发酵传养节、无公害，又吃节约饲料，鸡不得病，鸡精神好，日子好吃。
Such practical action on the ground, however, needs to be coupled with policy change.
We see the need for governments to review the national disaster risk reduction legislation to incorporate the needs and resources at the local level. This will help support building safer, resilient communities who are able to prepare for, adapt to and recover from disaster events.
After Tropical Storm Ketsana wreaked havoc in the Philippines, the Philippine Red Cross lobbied hard for new legislation that gave communities and civil society a greater role in disaster management planning. The result was a new law passed in 2010.
Number one, it is a very proactive law. It doesn't only focus on response, unlike the previous law, but then it's really looking into preparedness as well as risk reduction measures like mitigation. Unlike before, the previous law focuses on the 5% calamity fund can only be utilized during disasters. So for example, if you wanted to do preparedness measures or mitigation measures, it will only be done if the area was already declared as a state of calamity. Whereas this new law provides that the fund can be touched even without the disaster.
The evidence is clear. With the right systems, partnerships and incentives, disaster risk reduction can make a real difference towards improving lives and building a better future for people living in the most fragile and insecure environments in Asia Pacific.